My brother stole all my clients while I worked 70-hour weeks, so I exposed him quietly, and now he's begging for mercy. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and for most of my adult life, I've been obsessed with building my own business from scratch. I started with nothing, just a second-hand laptop, a cracked phone, and a stubborn belief that hard work could rewrite my future. While my friends spent weekends partying or traveling, I spent mine buried in client calls, late-night brainstorming sessions, and endless revisions. The glow of my computer screen became my sunrise, and the sound of clicking keys, my heartbeat. I missed birthdays, family dinners, even the occasional wedding. Everyone said I was too focused, but they didn't understand I wasn't chasing luxury. I was chasing freedom. I wanted to build something that couldn't be taken away from me, something that proved my life had purpose. Then there was my brother, Ethan, the polar opposite of me. Where I was quiet and methodical, he was magnetical ways the center of attention. The one cracking jokes and winning people over effortlessly. Growing up, our parents adored him. They'd brush off his failures, saying things like, "He just needs time to figure things out." Meanwhile, if I so much as took a day off, they'd remind me not to get too comfortable. Still, I never resented Ethan. If anything, I envied how easily the world seemed to bend for him. When my business finally started to take shape, steady clients, decent income, even a few local referrals, Ethan started showing interest. He'd say, "Man, you're really killing it. I wish I had your drive." And maybe it was that rare moment of humility from him that made me lower my guard. I started teaching him the ropes, how to talk to clients, how to handle deadlines, even how to pitch ideas. I told myself it was time to stop carrying everything alone. After all, he was my brother. What could possibly go wrong? But looking back, that was the moment I unknowingly handed him the keys to everything I'd built. When Ethan suggested we officially partner up, it felt like the natural next step. He came to me one evening with that easy grin of his and said, "You've been killing yourself doing all this alone. Let me handle the clients while you focus on the creative side. We'll be unstoppable, bro." At first, I laughed it off. I'd spent years protecting this business like it was my own child. But the truth was, I was exhausted. 70-hour weeks, sleepless nights, juggling clients, deadlines, and finances. It was starting to eat me alive. And hearing him say he wanted to help, it felt good. Like maybe someone finally saw how hard I'd been working. So I said yes. Ethan became the client guy, the face of the business. He was great at it, too smooth, charming, quick with compliments. Clients loved his energy. Within a few months, our workload doubled. He took over calls, handled contracts, and started introducing new systems that made things easier. One of those systems involved him managing all the client communications directly. Just to streamline things, he said. I didn't think much of it. He was family. Why would I question his motives? I threw myself into the work, coding, designing, delivering results. Ethan's charisma brought people in, and my output kept them satisfied. For a while, we were the perfect team, he talked. I executed. There were moments that made me proud. Watching us land our biggest client together, seeing our company name on local listings, hearing people refer to us as the brothers who built something real. It never felt closer to him, but small things began to feel off. He started taking meetings without telling me. Sometimes clients would refer to his company instead of ours. I laughed it off, thinking it was just a mix-up. I didn't realize it then, but Ethan wasn't building with me. He was learning how to build without me. And soon, that difference would destroy everything I thought we had. At first, everything looked perfect. Money flowed steadily. Clients seemed satisfied. And Ethan's smooth-talking charm was bringing in more projects than I could handle. But beneath the surface, something didn't feel right. Small inconsistencies started showing up in mails I never saw. Contracts that didn't match the original terms. Invoices missing small but noticeable amounts. I brushed it off as accounting errors. After all, Ethan was handling the administrative side, and I wanted to trust him. Then came the silence. Clients I'd worked with for years suddenly grew distant. Messages went unanswered for days. When I asked Ethan about it, he'd shrug and say, "Relax, bro. They're just taking time to review. You stress too much." His tone was light, dismissive, but something in his eyes made me uneasy, like he knew more than he was letting on. I started noticing subtle changes in how people talked about the business. One client referred to Ethan as the brains behind the operation. Another told me, "You and your team are doing great work," even though I didn't have a team, just Ethan and me. It was like my name was slowly disappearing from the story of what I'd built. Sometimes, Ethan would stay late at the office after I left. I'd come in early the next morning and find client files open on his computer, files that weren't even part of our current projects. When I'd ask, he'd smile lazily and say, "Just getting ahead of things, man. You should try it sometime." But my gut told me something was off. It wasn't just the numbers or the emails, it was his energy. The same brother who once looked up to me now seemed to be watching me, studying me, as if he was preparing for something. I didn't want to believe it then, but Ethan wasn't helping me grow the business. He was learning how to take it from me. It started small, just a few missed calls, a couple of clients saying they'd circle back in a few weeks. I figured it was normal. Business always had slow spells. But then one morning, I woke up to 3 separate messages from long-term clients, all saying the same thing. They were pausing their projects indefinitely. No explanation, no warning, just polite, distant emails that felt eerily coordinated. When I asked Ethan about it, he didn't even flinch. "Yeah, man, I heard from them too. They're just tightening budgets. It's the market, nothing we can do." His calmness irritated me. I'd poured years into those relationships. These weren't casual clients. They were people who sent me Christmas cards, who trusted me like family. Something wasn't adding up. A few days later, I called one of them directly. I expected a friendly chat, maybe some clarity. But the moment she picked up, her tone turned awkward. "Oh, I thought you were taking a break. Didn't Ethan tell you?" My heart dropped. I tried to laugh it off, but she continued, "He said you were burned out and stepping away for a while." That night, I sat staring at my laptop, rereading those emails over and over. My chest felt tight. Why would Ethan say that? Why would he make up something so specific? I confronted him the next day, trying to stay calm. "Did you tell clients I was taking time off?" He blinked, paused, then smiled faintly. "I might have said you were overloaded. I didn't want them stressing you out." "Chill, bro." But that smile, it wasn't reassuring. It was rehearsed. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just miscommunication. Something was shifting behind my back. Clients weren't just leaving. They were being led away. And I was too busy working to notice I was being erased. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying that client's voice. "Didn't Ethan tell you?" Like a loop I couldn't escape. Around 3 a.m., I got up, opened my laptop, and decided to dig. I started with our shared drive. Everything looked normal at first. Same folders, same invoices, until I noticed a new directory labeled Legacy Accounts. Inside were copies of client lists, pricing sheets, and project notes. But what really stopped me cold was the logo stamped at the top of each file, a brand I didn't recognize, one eerily similar to ours. Just with a slightly different name, my stomach dropped. I Googled it, half praying it was a coincidence. It wasn't. The website looked exactly like ours, same wording, same case studies, even my design work, except it listed Ethan as the founder. My name was nowhere. He'd copied everything, down to the testimonials I'd written by hand. I scrolled further and saw familiar faces, clients who had paused their projects. Their names were listed under his new company's partners section. He hadn't just taken them. He'd transferred them one by one behind my back. The betrayal hit harder than I expected. Not because of the money, but because of the trust. This wasn't some stranger trying to sabotage me. This was my brother, the same person I'd mentored, supported, and defended when everyone else called him lazy. I waited until morning before confronting him. He walked into the office, sipping his coffee like it was any other day. I turned my screen toward him and said quietly, "What is this, Ethan?" He glanced at it, smirked, and shrugged. "It's just business, bro. You've built something good, I'm just taking it to the next level. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He didn't even flinch. No guilt, no remorse, just arrogance. And that's when I realized the truth. My brother hadn't stolen my clients out of desperation. He did it because he thought he could get away with it after that confrontation. Everything started unraveling. Clients stopped calling altogether. Payments I was counting on never came through. Every morning, I'd open my inbox and see another cancellation, another thank you for your work, but we're moving in a different direction. In 2 weeks, my revenue had dropped by nearly half. I barely had enough to cover rent, let alone payroll for the freelancers I occasionally hired. I tried to talk to Ethan again, but he was impossible to reach. He'd show up late, avoid eye contact, and leave early with vague excuses about networking events. I finally cornered him. He sighed dramatically and said, "You're too emotional about this. It's just business, man. If you can't handle competition, maybe you shouldn't run a company." Now, the arrogance in his tone made my stomach twist. Our parents, of course, took his side. Mom called me saying, "You boys just need to talk it out. He's trying to find his path." Dad added, "You've always been the strong one. Don't hold grudges." They couldn't or wouldn't see what he'd done. To them, Ethan was still the charming son who just needed a chance. I tried to stay professional, but the stress was brutal. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly. Every night I sat in front of my screen staring at my empty project dashboard, wondering how years of sacrifice could vanish so fast. My hands would hover over the keyboard, but I couldn't bring myself to start new work. Everything reminded me of him, his voice, his laugh, his fake promises. The breaking point came at a family dinner. Ethan was bragging loudly about how his new company was expanding fast. Everyone laughed, proud of him, and I sat there, invisible, listening to my own work being celebrated under his name. That night I didn't get angry. I got quiet. Because for the first time, I realized this wasn't a competition anymore. It was warranted. I was done playing fair. After that dinner, I stopped trying to fix things. I stopped explaining myself to family, stopped chasing clients who had already left. Instead, I went silent. I realized Ethan's power came from visibility, from being loud, confident, everywhere. Mine would come from the opposite. I started gathering everything: email trails, contracts with timestamps, messages from clients, even screenshots of shared documents. Every detail painted the same picture. Ethan hadn't just copied me. He'd built his business using my work. Quietly, methodically, I created a digital folder I called Insurance. It wasn't about revenge yet. It was about proof. I needed to see the truth laid bare. I also started talking, but only to people who mattered. A few loyal clients who had left, but still respected me. I reached out politely. "Hey, I just wanted to check if everything's going smoothly with Ethan's team." Most replied with hesitation at first, but as trust returned, so did honesty. One said, "We thought you'd sold the company." "Ethan said you wanted out," another admitted. "Honestly, the work hasn't been the same since you left." Those messages hurt, but they also fueled me each night, while Ethan posted motivational quotes and entrepreneur life photos online. I stayed up building something new, a leaner, sharper version of my business. No ego, no partnership, no shared passwords. Just me and a plan. It was strange. The silence that once felt like defeat started to feel like control. Ethan thought I'd disappeared, but really, I was watching. Every move he made, every bragging post, every client update, I tracked it all. He thought he'd erased me, but I was quietly carving my way back into the story. And when the time came, I wasn't going to confront him with anger. I was going to bury him with the truth. Starting over was harder than I expected. My confidence was shattered, my name tainted by Ethan's lies. But there was something freeing about building from nothing, again this time, on my own terms. I chose a new business name, registered fresh domains, redesigned everything from scratch. No old clients, no recycled branding, just clean, honest beginnings. At first, it was painfully slow. I reached out to old clients, not to beg for work, but to apologize for the confusion. My messages were simple. You deserved better communication. I'm starting something new, and I just wanted to thank you for your trust in the past. Some ignored me, but others. They surprised me. A few replied with words I didn't expect to hear again. We missed working with you. I poured every ounce of my energy into this quiet rebuild. I stopped obsessing over Ethan's success and focused instead on creating something that couldn't be duplicated: authentic relationships. I answered every email personally, offered discounts, stayed up all night perfecting small details that most people wouldn't even notice. The grind was familiar, but this time it felt different. There was purpose behind every keystroke. Meanwhile, Ethan's new company started showing cracks. I could tell from the outside his social media posts became less frequent, his tone more defensive. A few former clients reached out, hinting that things weren't going well. One even said, "It doesn't feel the same without your touch." That hit me deeply. For the first time since the betrayal, I smiled genuinely. Not out of revenge, but out of validation. He could steal my clients, my materials, even my name. But he could never steal my work ethic or integrity. And quietly, the tide began to turn. New clients trickled in, referrals grew, and my reputation started rebuilding itself. Ethan still thought I was gone, but in reality, I was coming back stronger in this time. I wasn't leaving any doors unlocked. It happened by chance. One afternoon, longtime contact forwarded me an email chain. Ethan had pitched his company to a massive client, the kind that could make or break reputations. I read through his proposal and froze. Every single document, every slide, every line of text was mine, word for word, copied straight from my old files. Even the testimonial quotes were identical, except he'd replaced my name with his. I could have exploded with anger, but I didn't. Instead, I saw an opportunity. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the perfect time to let the truth speak for itself. I spent the night compiling everything: timestamps, domain registrations, project files, emails, even the original Photoshop documents with my initials embedded in the metadata. Then, I crafted a calm, professional email to the client Ethan was trying to land. It started simply, "Hello. I believe you deserve transparency about the materials you've received." I attached a detailed comparison, his version versus mine, and signed off with, "No need for drama, just facts." I hit send and closed my laptop. No rage, no satisfaction. Just quiet certainty. 2 days later, the fallout began. The client's legal team contacted me directly, thanking me for clarifying and asking to work with me instead. Word spread fast in our industry, whispers at first, then full-blown conversations. People started connecting the dots. Ethan's sudden rise wasn't genius, it was theft. By the end of the week, his company's name was mud. Clients pulled out, one after another. He tried damage control, but it only made things worse. Screenshots, comparisons, evidence, everything was public now, and as I watched it all unfold, I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just sat there, remembering every sleepless night he caused me. He'd built his empire on my work, and now it was collapsing under the weight of my silence. The news spread faster than I expected. Within a week, Ethan's inbox was flooded, not with client requests, but with refund demands and legal threats. The same people who once praised his charm were now tearing apart his reputation. His biggest client, the one he bragged about for months, publicly cut ties with a short statement: "We do not tolerate plagiarism or unethical conduct." That one sentence destroyed everything he'd built overnight. I watched it all quietly from my office. The calls stopped coming. His once busy social media went silent. I'd see his name in group chats and industry forums, followed by words like fraud, liar, and thief. It was surreal, like watching a storm I didn't start but knew was inevitable. Our parents eventually heard about it too. Mom called me, her voice trembling. "He's been crying all day," she said. "Please, talk to him. He's your brother." I didn't know how to respond. How do you comfort someone who destroyed you and now wanted sympathy for the wreckage? Dad tried to stay neutral, saying, "You proved your point, son. Maybe it's time to forgive." But they didn't understand this wasn't revenge. This was accountability. Ethan, on the other hand, tried everything. He sent texts like, "Can we talk?" And I made mistakes, but you've gone too far. I ignored every single one. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he got caught. Then one night, he showed up at my door. He looked nothing like the confident man who once bragged about his company. His shoulders were slumped, eyes hollow, voice trembling. "I lost everything," he said quietly. For a long time, I just stood there, saying nothing. I'd imagined this moment for months, but now that it was here, I didn't feel powerful. I just felt done. And in that silence, Ethan realized something I'd known for a while. He wasn't facing my revenge anymore. He was facing the consequences of his own choices. He stood in my doorway, drenched in sweat despite the cool air outside. His voice cracked when he spoke. "I messed up, man. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I didn't move. Part of me wanted to yell, to make him feel even half the pain he'd caused me. But I couldn't. I'd already burned through my anger months ago. What was left now was quiet disbelief that he finally saw what he'd done. Ethan sat down without asking.
Elbows on his knees,
Face in his hands. "They're all gone," he mumbled. "Every client. Even the ones who said they'd stick with me. I don't know what to do." His voice broke on that last word, "do." For the first time, he sounded like a child again, not the smug businessman he'd pretended to be. I let the silence stretch between us. The same silence I'd once drowned in when he stole everything from me. He looked up, desperate. "You've got to help me, man. You're good with people. You could talk to them, explain it was just a misunderstanding." I cut him off, my tone flat. "It wasn't a misunderstanding. You made a choice." His eyes flickered with guilt, but also something else, fear. Real, unfiltered fear. "Please," he whispered. "I don't have anyone else." I leaned back in my chair, watching him crumble. "You didn't lose everything, Ethan," I said quietly. "You gave it away." Stared at me, tears brimming, but I didn't flinch. There was nothing left to say. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it. He hesitated, then got up slowly, as if each step drained him. When he finally crossed the threshold, I added one last thing softly but firmly. "You taught me something, you know. I used to think loyalty was everything. Now I know integrity is." And with that, I closed the door behind him on my office, on my past, and on the person I'd once called my brother. After that night, I didn't hear from Ethan again. Not a text, not a call, just silence. And strangely, it didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. For the first time in years, I could wake up without a knot in my stomach, without wondering which client might disappear next or which betrayal was waiting in my inbox. My days slowly filled again, not with chaos, but with purpose. I rebuilt my business quietly, one client, one project, one honest connection at a time. People started noticing. Former clients who'd once left out of confusion reached out, saying, "We always knew something didn't add up." Others referred new work my way, saying they admired how I'd handled everything without drama. That meant more to me than any revenge ever could. My company wasn't just recovering. It was stronger, cleaner, and built entirely on trust this time. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers about Ethan Au. He tried to start again under a different name. How no one wanted to work with him. How the same charm that once won everyone over now fell flat. I didn't hate him for it anymore. Hate was too heavy to carry. I'd already done my part. The truth had done the rest. One evening, I sat in my office, watching the sunset paint the glass walls gold. The same room that once held my frustration now felt like a sanctuary. I thought about everything, what I'd lost, what I'd rebuilt, and what I'd learned. If I could go back, I wouldn't change how it ended. Because peace doesn't come from payback. It comes from knowing you survived without. It's becoming like the people who broke you. Ethan stole my clients, my money, and my trust. But I rebuilt something far greater. He's still chasing success. I found Passand, that's something he'll never steal again.